They tell you power is lost through weakness, but that's not true, because weakness is obvious and can be corrected, while emotion is silent and feels justified. And that's why it's more dangerous, because one outburst, one proud reaction, one careless explanation, and everything a disciplined man has built can collapse in a blink. Not because the world suddenly got stronger, but because you stepped off the throne inside your own mind and handed the crown to a feeling that was never meant to rule you. The chains today aren't made of steel, they're made of reaction, outrage, craving, insecurity, and the need to be understood by people who were never going to understand you anyway. Because the new architecture of control isn't domination, it's provocation. It's getting you to flinch on command, getting you to speak too much, show too much, chase too much, and then calling it being real, when all it really did was make you predictable. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The world doesn't need your loyalty, it needs your reactions, because a reactive man is a readable man, and a readable man can be guided, baited, and dismantled without a single blow. Machiavelli didn't need a feed, a timeline, or a comment section to understand this, because he watched rulers fall in real time. Not because they lacked strategy, but because they couldn't govern their own passions, and he learned the principle that never stopped being true. The one who controls your emotions controls your actions, and the one who controls your actions doesn't need to chain you, because you'll walk yourself into the cage and call it freedom. Scroll through the modern world and you'll see it instantly once you're trained to see it. This isn't information, it's emotional engineering. Headlines aren't crafted to inform, they're engineered to inflame. Every story is a spark. Every post is a pressure test. Every trend is a lever, and you're not being told what to think. You're being conditioned on how to feel, because once your feelings are hijacked, your logic becomes decoration. And when your nervous system is on fire, you stop navigating reality and start reacting to a version of reality built for profit and prediction. And in that state, you think you're choosing, but you're only responding. You think you're acting with conviction, but you're just moving in the groove someone else carved for you. This is why discipline gets mocked, because disciplined men don't generate predictable data. They don't provide clean, emotional responses. They don't buy on impulse. They don't confess on impulse. They don't fight every battle on impulse, and the system can't monetize what it can't steer. They'll call your restraint cold. They'll call your silence arrogant. They'll call your standards ego, because weakness today dresses itself in authenticity. And too many people have been trained to believe that being ruled by emotion is a virtue, when in reality, it's just being readable. And when you become an open book, you invite authors who were never meant to hold the pen. Look closer and you'll see how manipulation actually works. It doesn't overpower you, it provokes you. It finds the pressure points you didn't heal, your pride, your insecurity, your need to be respected, your fear of rejection. And once it finds the right switch, it doesn't need strength, it just needs timing. Because if someone can trigger you, they can steer you. And if they can steer you, they can make you betray your own long-term strategy for short-term emotional relief. Your body wasn't built for this kind of warfare. Your biology was built for survival, not precision, which means your ancient wiring still fires like it's staring at a lion when it's really staring at a comment, a message, a rejection, a rumor, a loss, a chart moving against you, a person trying to test you, and cortisol floods your system like it's life or death. Tunnel vision takes your mind, and suddenly your clarity disappears. That's when men sabotage themselves. They speak before they think. They explain when they should observe. They chase when they should wait. They confess when they should stay unreadable. They trade impulse for relief, and then later they call it a mistake, when it was never a mistake. It was simply undisciplined emotion driving the car. This is why Stoicism isn't a quote on a wall, and strategy isn't a book you read once, because none of it matters if you can't hold your own state under pressure, and the men who can, the men who remain still while the fire starts, are the ones still standing when it ends. Now here's where it gets real, because this isn't just about politics, or social media, or ego. This is about your entire life. Because the same emotional leaks that ruin your presence in a room are the same emotional leaks that ruin your trading decisions, your relationships, your negotiations, your training consistency, your business leadership, your ability to build anything that takes time, because anything great is built slowly and emotions demand speed. And that's why most people never build anything. They're too busy reacting. They're too busy proving. They're too busy being pulled. A disciplined mind doesn't eliminate emotion, it governs it. Because composure isn't numbness, it's command. And command begins with one question you must learn to ask in real time, especially when the heat rises in your chest and the impulse screams for a response. Who benefits if I show this right now? That question is a blade. That question cuts the strings. That question turns bait into information. And information, when held quietly, becomes leverage. Psychologists talk about two systems, the fast mind and the slow mind. The fast mind is emotional, impulsive, reflexive, and the slow mind is deliberate, rational, composed, and most men live and die in the fast mind because the world trained them to, because fast minds click, buy, argue, confess, overshare, and burn energy on battles that yield nothing. But the men who win, the men who keep their position, the men who become hard to manipulate, they live in the slow lane because they let emotion knock, but they don't let it drive. They greet it, study it, translate it, and then decide. This is where the hunter mindset actually lives, not in aggression, not in loudness, not in constant conflict, but in control, in patience, in timing, in being able to sit in discomfort without flinching, in being able to watch the environment without needing to change it just to soothe your ego. And if that hits you, if you've ever felt your life get pulled off course by a single reaction, a single moment of pride, a single impulse, comment hunter and let the others find you. Because even though we're scattered across different cities, different countries, different time zones, the mindset is the same. And disciplined people always recognize each other, not because they announce it, but because they move with the same code: restraint, standards, silence, execution. Some people sharpen themselves through trading, where every candle is a pressure test and every decision exposes who you are when the money's on the line. And they learn patience, risk, timing, and the ability to stay calm while the average mind panics. Some people sharpen themselves through stoicism and philosophy, where the battlefield is internal and the enemy is impulse, and they learn to control the inner world so the outer world can't control them. Some sharpen themselves through training, where discomfort becomes proof and discipline becomes identity, and they stop negotiating with weakness. Some sharpen themselves through business, where leverage and negotiation reveal character, and long-term thinking separates builders from performers. Different arenas, same hunt. And when you're surrounded by people built the same way, you don't just get motivation, you get reinforcement, you get accountability without begging for it, you get perspective from people who fought the same war in a different uniform. And that alignment is rare, and it sharpens you because it becomes harder to fall back into excuses when your environment is full of standards. Now let's talk about the real weapon: silence. Silence isn't retreat, it's control. Every manipulator needs feedback, because manipulation is a loop: provocation and reaction, insult and defense, praise and dependence. And if you refuse to react, the loop breaks because they can't provoke what they can't reach. They can't own what doesn't respond. And that's why calmness is feared more than fury, because fury is visible and predictable. But calm is unreadable, and unreadable men cannot be steered. This is also why the modern world pushes constant expression, because expression leaks data, and data becomes prediction, and prediction becomes control. And if you broadcast your triggers, your insecurities, your desires, your plans, you don't just open up, you hand strangers the blueprint of your nervous system. Machiavelli said people judge by appearances, not by reality, and that's why the strongest move is often to appear simple while thinking deeply, to appear calm while calculating, to appear humble while building leverage. Because the man who shows his full hand too early doesn't lose because he's wrong, he loses because he's exposed. So understand this: emotional composure isn't moral superiority, it's survival. It's the pause before the punch. It's the breath before the word. It's the ability to feel the spike and still stay slow. It's mastering your physiology so your heartbeat doesn't write your decisions for you. Because if someone else controls the pace of your heartbeat, you're not in control, and you can be strong and still lose to a whisper. You can be smart and still fold under pressure, because the nervous system is where wars are lost before a word is spoken. And once you start living this way, you start seeing the world differently. You stop trying to win every argument because you finally understand that most arguments are traps designed to waste your time and drain your state. You stop correcting people who don't want truth, they want a reaction. You stop explaining yourself to people who already decided what they think of you. You stop chasing closure from people who benefit from your confusion. You start walking away with your spine tall, your gaze steady, and your energy intact. And that's when your presence becomes heavy. Not loud, not dramatic, just heavy. Because power isn't volume, it's gravity. And the composed man bends the room without asking for attention. Because people can feel when someone is not available for manipulation. Every room has a tempo, and most people enter and match it. They scan for cues and adjust their tone to blend in. But the calm man doesn't blend. He bends the environment, not through intimidation, but through stability. Because when you stay grounded, everybody else is forced to feel how unstable they are. That's why calm makes people uncomfortable. It exposes noise and it becomes a mirror. And most people hate mirrors. They'll try to label you. They'll say you're different now. They'll say you're cold. They'll say you think you're better. But it's not superiority, it's sovereignty. And sovereignty is simply this: you no longer trade your emotions for acceptance. And this is where the community matters again. Because when you live with standards, you will outgrow certain rooms and you'll start feeling the gap, the silence, the distance, not because you're broken, but because you've been calibrated for a different pace. And that's when it matters that there are other people out there, across the world, living by the same discipline, building themselves in the dark, training their mind, sharpening their craft, and refusing to be pulled into the same old emotional traps. They'll remind you that you're not alone. They'll remind you that the work is normal. They'll remind you that the silence is part of the path. They'll remind you that the hunt is long and worth it. Now let's make it practical, because this isn't poetry. This is training. Start with delay. When something stings, don't flinch, observe it. When someone provokes, don't respond, read it. When emotion rises, don't drown in it. Ride it, let it crash without reaching for it. Because the body wants release and emotion wants expression, but the strategist wants leverage, and he never trades leverage for relief. Then train your silence, not as avoidance, but as timing. Let people talk long enough and they reveal their entire psychology. Let someone insult you long enough and their insecurities spill out like confession. You don't need to guess who they are. You just need to stop interrupting them with your reaction. This is pressure without words. This is interrogation through calm. In negotiations, the one who breaks silence first often loses. In relationships, the one who begs to be understood usually surrenders. In business, the one who needs to prove value has already lowered it. And that's why the man who speaks less and times his words like arrows instead of bullets always strikes deeper. Finally, translate emotion into strategy. Fear isn't a command to retreat, it's a map showing where preparation is lacking. Anger isn't a spark to burn bridges, it's fuel that can be refined into focus. Desire isn't a weakness unless it becomes dependence. Even love becomes dangerous when it's attached to ego, to needing to be chosen, to needing to be seen, because then it becomes leverage for anyone who wants to steer you. But disciplined emotion becomes power, because it turns feelings into information, and information into action, and action into results. And results are the only language the world can't argue with. If you've listened this far, you already know what you are, even if you've never had a word for it, because average minds don't seek this kind of control. They seek comfort, they seek validation, they seek quick emotional release. But disciplined minds seek mastery, and mastery is built in the moments no one sees. When you don't react, when you don't explain, when you don't chase, when you keep your word to yourself, when you train, even when you don't feel like it, when you stay calm while others spiral. So here's the closing truth. In a world that monetizes emotion, the rarest power is composure. Not the performance of stoicism, but the practice of it. Not the aesthetic of strategy, but the discipline of it. Stay still, move last, speak rarely. Build a presence so grounded it cannot be provoked. And when the world keeps trying louder and louder to pull you into reaction, let it realize the one thing it fears most. You can't be moved. If this felt like it was written for the part of you that's tired of flinching, hit like and subscribe. Because the next step isn't motivation, it's training. And the disciplined always find their way back to what sharpens them. We are hunters,